Hi, it's Steve. Today we'd like to show you how to replace the insulation on your range. It's a really easy repair. Let me show you how we do it. Now to do this repair, first of all, we want to make sure that the oven is cool to touch, so make sure it's been off for a while. Then we'll also need to pull the range far enough forward that we can access the back. We'll need to remove the top and the side panels as well. So the first thing we'll need to do is disconnect the power. So either unplug it or locate the electrical panel, turn off the appropriate breaker or remove the appropriate fuses, and then we can start the repair. Now we'll begin at the back of the range where we'll need to remove the screws for the back panel, as well as the screws that secure the side panel to the frame. These are typically number 2 Phillips head screws. And be sure to support that back panel as you remove the last screw. You need to flex it a bit to untuck it from the top of the console. Tilt it back, lift it off and set it aside. Now with the back panel removed, we're also going to require removing this screw that secures the ground wire. That's attached to the back side of the main top, and we'll need it released. This is a machine type screw, so be sure to keep that separate. Now next we'll want to remove both the elements and the drip bowls from the surface. It's easier just to take those off as a unit. Simply tilt up, pull them away, and we'll just store them inside for now. Now next we'll disconnect the terminal blocks from the main top. There's a single screw through the face of that terminal block. We'll just remove those. So our next step will be to remove our main top. Once we've got those terminal blocks detached from it, we're simply going to lift up on the front, pull it up all the way until the prop rods engage and hold it in place. Now our next step will be to support the front of that main top. We'll pull the prop rods out of the opening in the side panel, and then we'll disengage them from the main top. To do that, simply pull forward on them and unhook them. Now we'll carefully lay that main top down. Now with the top laying flat, we'll pull it far enough forward and we'll expose one more screw that attaches a clamp and that wire harness to the top edge and the backsplash of that main top. So either with a stubby screwdriver reaching in from here, or you can go through that round opening in the back now and access that screw. Now we can lift that top completely up off of the range and we'll set it aside. Now our next step will be to remove the rear console and allow it to rest over the back of the range. To do so, there's a single screw at the bottom of the end caps on either side. So we'll remove those and be sure to support that rear console as you remove the second screw. And lastly, we'll need to disconnect the ground wire Now while carefully supporting that console, we're going to lift straight up on it. Note that there are metal brackets on either end that tuck in behind the side panels. That should come up far enough that we can actually tilt it over. And if possible, we'll try to support that so that we're not putting any tension on wires to the elements. The easiest way to do that is to attach those brackets temporarily. Make sure you pull the side panel away. And that'll support that console. Now next we'll remove the main top, remove the 2 hidden screws that were underneath that console. 2 along each side. and 3 across the front. Then lift straight up on that top, remove it and set it aside. Now next, we'll pull the back edge of that side panel away from the frame. Now with the back edge of that side panel released, we're going to swing it open. There are 2 tabs that are attached to the face frame on that oven liner. So we'll need to pull it far enough that we can slide those tabs of the corresponding slots. There'll be 3 on each side. And we'll set that side panel aside. Now on the right-hand side of the oven, we also have the harness for our door switch. So we'll need to pull that harness away from the retaining clips. Again, we'll tilt that panel to the side, unhook it from the tabs, and we'll set that one aside. Now next, we'll pull that insulation out from underneath the oven. Do the same on both sides. Then we'll lift it off the top. We'll pull it away from that wire harness. You can discard the old insulation. We'll next take the new insulation, lay it on top of the oven liner. We'll tuck one end underneath that harness. Locate the cross cut in that insulation and fit it over the chimney. That will help align the insulation so we have an equal amount on both sides. Make sure it tucks down in flat. And we're going to fold that bottom edge, carefully tuck that in, taking care not to bunch it up. We'll do the same on the opposite side. Now, once we have the insulation tucked into place, we can begin to reassemble our range, and we'll start with the side panels. So we'll want to make sure that we line up those 3 slotted openings with the tabs on the side of the frame. You'll find it easier to engage the bottom one first, and then just swing that panel roughly into position. We'll do the opposite side. Make sure all 3 tabs are engaged. Swing that panel around. Be sure to reattach the wire harness into the restraints. And then we'll position that subtop. We'll begin by installing the 3 screws across the front. We'll start with the one in the center and carefully align the 2 front corners. And we'll do the ones along the back edge. Now next, we're going to remove those 2 temporary screws that we installed to hold that backsplash in place. Be sure to support that backsplash as you remove those 2 screws. And tilt it up into position. Tuck those legs down into that frame. Now next, we'll make sure that we push these side panels into position, making sure that the top lift of the side panel goes underneath that subtop. The back side of that side panel needs to go on the outside of the frame. Now once you have that side panel positioned properly, we'll line up the screws for the end cap. We'll go down through an opening in the subtop and then through the side panel. Once you've secured one side, we can go to the opposite side. Now, once the backsplash is secured, we'll go ahead and put the remainder of the subtop screws in place. Now we'll go to the back of the range again. We'll reconnect that ground wire, the harness connector for the light and door light switch, the temp sensor. Make sure the locking tabs engage. Check to be sure we didn't loosen any wiring. Now at this point we can put the remainder of the screws in for the side panel. Now we're ready to temporarily set the main top in place. Now we'll position it far enough back that we can access the clamp for that wire harness. We'll tighten that screw. We'll also pull that ground wire through the opening, and we'll reattach that. At this point, we can put the access panel on the back. Just be sure to tuck this little edge in the center inside of that opening. Tilt it up into place. You'll flex it a bit to tuck in these tabs on the end. We'll line up the top corners first. And then we'll just continue to put the rest of those screws in. And now we'll go back to the front of the range where we can reconnect that main top, our surface elements and bowls. Now, when attaching that main top to these spring clips, you'll take note on either side, there is a raised vertical bracket with a hole in the very top and a spring clip on the back side of that. So the pin will fit into that opening and the spring will keep it in place. This is the pin that is attached to that main top that fits into the hole in that bracket, and the spring holds it in place. So we're going to begin by attaching one side or the other. Simply lift it up, line up that pin with the hole. And once we have both of those pins in place, we're then ready to attach our prop rods. We'll simply raise that main top, hold it in position. So while you carefully support that main top, we're going to keep the flat tab on the outside, fit it into that opening, and in the next bend, we're going to actually flex that around and into position, pull the prop rod forward, and it's hooked into place. We'll do the same on the opposite side. Now, as you lower that down towards the openings in the main top, we want to make sure that there's enough tension on that rod that it keeps them forward about an inch or an inch and a half past that hole. So if need be, just flex them a bit. As they fit down into that hole, they should push themselves forward enough to lock in place. Now next, we'll line up the individual terminal blocks to the proper spot. We'll lower that main top, pull the terminal block into position, fit the little tab into the slotted opening, and then secure it with a screw. Then we'll tighten those screws for the terminal blocks. Now we're ready to put the elements and bowls back in place. When reinstalling, we suggest placing the bowl in first. Make sure it lines up with the terminal block. Slide your element in and make sure the tab on the end of that element fits into the slot on the bowl. Now that we have everything back together, we're ready to push the range back into position, reconnect the power, and your repair is complete.